Breaking Ground is a very important organization that is making some great inroads. You heard Ken Small a little earlier talk to us about the fight against homelessness. There are a lot of organizations in the Bronx and New York City that are doing some great work in the fight against homelessness. So we now introduce you to someone else who is doing just that. Joining us now is Claire Sheedy, and she's the Vice President of Breaking Ground, Vice President for the housing programs. And Claire, good to have you.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Hey, good. As I was talking with Ken earlier, we should have put you right behind it, but listen, when we talk about the fact of homelessness, it's a big situation that we've got going on in New York City, but you guys have been really on the front line in terms of providing housing too. And so share with us a little bit about Breaking Ground.
Sure. Breaking Ground is an organization, a mission-based nonprofit that provides housing and other related services to homeless and other vulnerable New Yorkers. There are three ways that we pursue our mission. One is through street outreach, so like Bronx Works, Breaking Ground is responsible for providing street outreach services to all of Brooklyn, all of Queens, and about 30% of Manhattan. Mm-hmm. We also have about 300 beds of safe haven units. We provide shelter for street homeless people to help them come in from outside. And we are a developer and operator of permanent housing. Here in the Bronx, our first new development was in 2010. We actually, it's a supportive housing program, and Bronx Works is the social service provider at that location. In 2015, we opened a building on Boston Road that was funded using Medicaid redesign funds, so capital funds designed to support locations where we can house people who are high Medicaid users. Mm-hmm. All of our supportive housing has on-site social services, so we have psychiatry on-site, medical services on-site, job training on-site, crisis intervention counseling. All of our supportive housing is mixed, so half of the units approximately are for special needs tenants and the other half are for community residents. We were very excited just about a month ago to open our first new straight affordable project in the Bronx on Park and 178th Street called Park House for 248 families.
And so you have a lot of things that are going on particularly, but when we talk about the first building for low-income families in the Bronx and we talk about Park House, one of the things that includes homes for seniors, the homeless, and much more. But and then also when you talk about the building, it's not a regular building, it's a building that's designed by some world-class architects.
Yes, indeed. Yes, we believe that you don't have to be rich to live in a beautiful building, that people of low income, as well as people who have been homeless, some homeless for decades living on the street, mm-hmm. living in a beautiful building restores dignity. It helps ease the transition from what could be what was a very difficult life to greater stability. Our portfolio, we have buildings that range in size from 72 units to 650 units. Mm-hmm. And probably over 30% of our tenants are over 62.
And when we talk about homelessness, obviously first thing that comes to people's minds is taking people off of the street and getting them into some sort of housing. But then your mission goes beyond that, because you're really talking about transforming lives and working with people to get them to a place where they can really have feet on the ground.
Absolutely. So that we work with people on the street. We often see people moving from the street to our transitional housing and into our permanent supportive housing. Our stabilization rate for special needs tenants in our supportive housing is above 90%. So supportive housing is a model that has on-site services, and it is a model that works. It's not only humane, but it is cheaper than other kinds of residential models.
Talk to us a little bit about the 2018 Hope Count and what that is.
January 22nd, Breaking Ground, together with lots of other organizations in the city of New York and volunteers everywhere, will be going out to count the number of people that we find who may be homeless living on the street. Mm-hmm. So together with volunteers and with the City Department of Homeless Services, we have teams of people who go out between 11 p.m. and 4 a.m. and complete surveys to try to get a sense of who's out there.
Mm-hmm. I'll ask you the same question I asked Ken. Do you find things getting better nowadays?
I think we're in a really, really tough situation in the city, not just in terms of people who may be living on the street, but the shelter system has 60,000 people a night, I think, at this point. I think the real estate market is super tough. Rents have continued to increase. There isn't enough affordable housing that's being developed. We just can't develop it fast enough. So I think that the answers are multi-pronged. So we have to we have to have more services for people who are on the street. We have to have more transitional housing, and we definitely need more low-income housing.
So for people who are out there right now and they may have family members or people that they're connected to that they feel might be able to receive your services, what should they do?
They can call 311, and if they want to ask for advice or report someone that they believe is at risk of homelessness, or then they can be connected to an outreach team who will follow up. People can also go to our website, breakingground.org. There we have applications for all of our housing. And information about how people can access more services.
Yeah, last week we just had some real frigid temperatures and pretty bad thoughts and go out to those people who were out on the street. I'm sure you guys as well had teams on the ground.
We sure did. We sure did. We have teams on the ground 24/7, 365. They're people who are compassionate and persistent and whose goal it is to help persuade people who refuse shelter for whatever reason, who may be struggling with issues that make it hard for them to trust someone enough to come inside. So the outreach teams work with folks over time and do their best to help people to come inside.
And getting people inside is definitely what's needed. The conversation about homelessness, is it increasing? Is it getting better? Because sometimes people thought, in the circles that I was in, that it wasn't that bad. And I think more recently we're finding out just how tragic it is, given the fact that we've got an increasing population, decrease in funds,
yes,
and you find more people who are not just poor, but literally the working poor. And as Ken said earlier, you're just one situation away from really being out there on the street.
Exactly. I mean, I think my understanding is that 30% of the heads of households in shelter are working people. So we're talking about people who are working for a living but can't afford the mad rents that are out there. There are many forces that have gotten us to this place in New York City, and again, it's related to the value of land and the price of real estate and rents. Wages have been largely flat. We're very excited about the increase in the minimum wage and hope that that will make a difference. We have lots of people who are coming out of prison. Everybody needs a place to live. Housing, Breaking Ground believes that housing is a right and that everyone should have a place to live.
So we want people to get in touch. Now, if you want more information about Breaking Ground, you can go to their website, www.breakingground.org, and you can find out more information about them there. Also, as you said, if we know somebody that may be suffering, dealing with, or you have some questions related to homelessness, 311 is the number that you can call. You can be put into touch with the variety of different organizations that can help you in this time. So there's no need for anyone to be out there all by themselves, particularly during times like this. Reaching out to 311 is very important. But I know sometimes there's a little stigma with people calling 311 as well. So listen, we want you to get in touch. Claire Sheedy is our guest. She's been with us. She's Breaking Ground's Vice President for Housing Operations and Programs. And thank you so much for coming and sharing with us.
Thank you.
Good. Stay with us. Listen, we're going to take a quick break, but when we return, we're going to have more, and we're going to introduce you to an actress that is making headlines. Stay with us. We're coming right back right after this.